I wanted to really go deeper into your modeling career and the
Sure.
origin story of that. Could you tell me how you became a male model in the first place and what kind of point in your life that was at?
So yeah, I was about 20, well, at the age of about 16, I was in London with my mum and my sisters, or one of my sisters, and we were shopping, and I basically got asked or scouted by someone saying, "Oh, you should do some modeling."
Hmm.
And I didn't follow it up. I wasn't interested. I was 16, still wanted to finish school. I was actually at a boarding school, so it would be very difficult to do anything like that at the time anyway. But then a few years passed, but that had already stuck in the back of my mind somewhere. And when I was at university, a friend of mine, he was a model that came to visit us when we were at uni. And, he didn't go to university, he was just on the modeling circuit. And I remember having a good chat with him. He's saying, "Oh, you want to really be thinking about doing this?" And his name was Greg. He was a really top guy. And I think a few years passed. I finished my degree at Leeds, and then I was like, I'm ready to go into work, but I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what fascinated me, so I just went into banking, into finance, which was what my dad did at the time. And I just thought, well, maybe that's what I should do, but I wasn't really sure. I wasn't fully um, devoted to that type of career, but I just wanted to check it out. But whilst I was there, I remember like dressing smart for the bank in the morning. I was working in, the city in London and Canary Wharf, and it was, quite a nice introduction into finance and things like that. But I remember the girls at the time going, "Oh, I don't know why you're here. You should be doing something else." And I was thinking, really? So actually, what happened was, a girlfriend at the time that I was dating, she gave me an idea. You want to go and check out these modeling agencies. And I remember feeling a bit discontented with the work that I was doing. The money was good, but I was just discontented with the whole thing. And I just felt like I really wanted to travel, I wanted to see the world. I didn't want to have to wear a suit unless I wanted to. And I remember like shouting out for myself. I was like, "Do you know what I want? I wanted to be able to travel, wear the clothes I want to wear when I want to wear them. I want to meet amazing people. I want to do something cool that not a lot of people would get the chance to do if that's possible for me. But the most important thing is I want to feel happy and free in what I'm doing. And I want it to be paid really well. And I want to be flexible in case I have some entrepreneurial desire that I would like to fulfill." So I remember saying that out loud. And then my girlfriend at the time said, "You want to check out this modeling agency and just see if you can get on the books. You never know." So that confidence that came from when I was 16 and somebody asked me, I thought, "Do you know what? I've got nothing to lose. I'm not very happy in the work that I'm doing, so I might as well go and try seeing if I could get signed by a modeling agency." So I kind of had the confidence to just walk into a modeling agency, and I bought at those times you didn't have phones and photographs that you could show these days. So I remember taking like a holiday snap of me from and I remember a few people going, "Oh, that's a really good picture." So I was like, "Okay, I'll just take this and I've got nothing to lose." And just at the time, what was quite interesting, whilst I was working in the bank, I was then going into, at the same time I was working in the bank for Citibank,
Hmm.
I went into a modeling agency called Models One, which is a very big agency in London. And I went in with my holiday snap, wearing my suit because it was in between the times of me being banking. And they said, "Oh, somebody's here to see you." So I went to showed them my holiday photo, and they looked at me and they go, "You don't look like the same guy in the photo." And I was like, "Oh," and I said, "Okay." And they said, "You look, the person in the photo is great. That's you." I said, "Yeah, that's me with the tan." And they go, "Well, what we would love you to do is we'd love you to come back in a month, and maybe lose, a couple of few kilos." Because
Mm.
I'd been drinking at the time. I was having a couple of pints a day, in my
That's the
banking.
culture in London.
That's
Yeah,
the
yeah,
culture, right? And I was
yeah,
thinking, "Oh, right, okay, so I've got a chance, so I've still got a chance." So
yeah.
I remember going back in a month's time. So in a month's time, I got myself in better shape. I started eating well, not drinking quite as much, because a couple of pints a day is like, I don't know, 800 calories a day on top of your food. And so I was thinking, right, I want to get in good shape. I've got a chance to do this career. So I went back a month later, but now I was even more deeper in the banking. You know, I was trusted, people wanting me to do a lot more things. There was a lot more responsibility that was given to me. So I was I was happy about that, and the money was good, but it still was discontenting. But I had that thing in the back of my mind, go on, keep doing the modeling, go for it.
Mm.
So what I did was is I went back, and not to that exact agency, because I knew I had about an hour and a half of lunch break that I could max out. So I thought, right, now's the time. And I went to a couple of agencies that were closer to Sloane Square Station, because a few modeling agencies were on the King's Road. And I was thinking, right, I need to get here, but I need to make sure that I can get back to work in time, because I'm juggling two ideas here, two jobs potentially. And I eventually got signed by a company called, the first company went to see again was Storm, which was Kate Moss's agency. And at that time they said no. And then I went round the corner to another bit more commercial agency called Nevs, and they said yes. And I was like, wow. And that was my entry. And then literally within a month or two, they asked me to go to these castings. But then I was trying to potentially, if I get the job, I'd have to not go to the bank. I'd not have to go to work in the city. And that was two very different lifestyles and career trajectories. I mean, they couldn't be more polar opposite. And eventually, what happened was I got signed for one job. I managed to use it as a sick day. And then I got signed to do some work with Ralph Lauren, which was ongoing. And that's when I used up a couple of weeks holiday. And then I was like, right, this is still carrying on. I should really go for
Yeah.
this. And so my manager at the time, amazing guy, I still remember his name. His name's Andy. He said to me, he goes, look, we really want you here, but you should really go for it. And by that time, I was 25. So I kind of started modeling late in guys' terms, because most guys sort of come in at 18, 19, 20. But I was already a bit more mature, but I didn't look it. I still looked about 18. So that was a blessing. So that's how it
When
really
you
started.
when you walk into a place, and this is so bizarre that I had a really similar experience to you. I was on the tube once. I was
Okay.
17, and a woman came up to me and gave me a card. She was like, "I'm a model scout. You should come in for a casting."
Yeah.
And I was with my dad at the time. He was like, "Oh, you should really do that." And I was like, "Ah." And I
Yeah.
never did. And then I think 5 years later, just before I moved to the US, I went into one agency, and it was the Kate Moss one off the King's Road.
Storm. Yeah.
Yeah, it was Storm. And I went in there, and there was a bunch of like anorexic girls with
Yeah.
their mothers clutching,
Yeah.
I just went in, and they took a look at me for like 10 minutes, took some photos, and said, "Yeah, no thanks." And I just completely forgot about the whole thing after that. When they're in the agency, or a man goes in to try and get signed as a model, what are they looking for? What are they evaluating?
So they're evaluating a few things. Number one, are you the right height, which is about 6'2", between 6'1" and 6'2". That's got to be the right height. Are you photogenic? Do you have a good jawline? The simple things. But then in an agency like Storm, for instance, which is like proper high end, very fashion, but very successful, and Sarah Dukas, who runs Storm, they built a brand, right? And when Kate was there, they built a fantastic brand of like, high fashion models, and the guys section of Storm, not so big. The women's section was very big, but the guys who were on the books at Storm, very particular. So when they're going in, they're really looking for height, looking for personality, character. Can you own it? Do you have any previous, sometimes you've got to take a punt on new faces, of course. But, the main thing is do you have something that no one's seen yet? Do you have that something? Do you have that special something? And can that be shown in a photograph, or in a commercial, or in a video, or in a campaign? And usually what they do in the men's booking sections of modeling agencies, they're just looking to see, does everybody agree that this person has potential, because we're going to back them when we promote them for castings? And that's
Mm.
usually the case. Everybody on the table has to say yes. And if not, they have to let you go. And so when you go to any modeling agency, the table who could be looking after you, like the men's division, they're going to be wanting to all say yes.
What time period was this? This is like late 90s, mid
So that
90s?
I started modeling. Actually, my first ever job was just like a sort of undercover job for DKNY in London, because my girlfriend at the time, who was trying to promote me for the modeling, she was working for DKNY, and she was very kind enough to say, "Oh, we need a model for to do some work," and I've got the guy. So that's how I did it, and I just got paid in clothes. And that kind of gave me a lot of confidence. I was like, right, okay, this is a nice big brand. It certainly was at the beginning of the 2000s. But when I first went into the modeling agency, it was end of 2000. And then, yeah, I jumped a few agencies over the years.
The male physique, or like the ideal male physique,
Yeah,
for a male model is not always the same as what a lot of men see on social media with more of a gym and a bodybuilding culture. So if a guy is looking to develop more of a male model type physique, more of like an aesthetic based physique, what would
sure.
he do differently in the gym and with his diet and cardio and things like
Well,
that?
that's a really interesting question, but you've got to really ask who's asking that question. Is it the agent asking that, or is it the guy himself? Because usually when you're getting recruited to do to an agency first and foremost, because if you're going to go into the modeling world, you've got to be recruited by a good agent, and a good agent will represent you and put you in front of the right brands and the right products, etc. So in my case, no one was really asking me to do anything. What people were, they knew the picture, they'd seen the Polaroids, but they knew that James was going to be this type of guy. He's going to be the classical guy. That was my vibe. But I took it upon myself to go, I'm going to get myself in great shape as well. So I've got more strings to my bow. Because actually, when I first started, it was a lot more end of the heroin chic type of vibe.
Yeah.
It was that kind of skinny, unhealthy, looking weird culture. And, I wasn't any of that. So when I came in, it was a lot more, it was different. And I was like, I can't play somebody that I'm not, although they do
Yeah.
try to cast you that way.
Hmm.
So in trying to answer to your question, what do you have to do in the gym? Well, it depends on what you want. So in my case, I was training like 5 times a week, making sure that I was eating good foods and, having a couple of protein shakes a day, trying to get up my protein levels to make sure I maintain a certain muscle mass and physique. So that was what I did. And, I followed a program for 3 months. And by the time they asked me to go to Milan to start doing the shows in 2021 summer, I was like 25, something like that. I was like, wow, this is crazy. But I made it a point. I'm not going to go to the shows unless I'm absolutely cut. So that's exactly what I did. And I'm
Right.
happy to share some photos with you that you can share with the audience,
Oh
what,
yeah,
what I was
absolutely.
like. Yeah. So I'll just pass that to you so you can share it underneath. But that's the level I went to. But that's me, and that was the way I thought about the situation. Nobody was telling me to do anything different. They often say to the girls, lose weight so you look better. But with the guys, we didn't have that kind of, oh, you need to be this or you need to be that. I just
Hmm.
decided for myself that this was the character that I was going to bring to the table.
Okay, so maybe to an extent, the men actually, at least back then, had a bit less pressure on their
Lost pressure. And
total
you've got to also
body
be
image.
thinking everybody's still going out, everybody's still partying. And when you're young, you can maintain a better physique than you can when you're older. So,
Hmm.
but is everybody trying to work out and look amazing? No, in Milan, people and in New York, people are really trying to do that. But in London, not so much. In Milan,
Right.
it's, you know, it's like more people are concerned about being at the right place with the right people and at the right party rather than trying to focus on, their wellness, which is where
It's
I
very hard
started.
to it's hard to do both. Whatever industry
Yeah,
you're in, there's always that kind of decision you have to make of, do I spend more time at the bars, networking, meeting people, making those connections, or do I focus on actually my own wellness and improving myself? Because it's very hard to do both simultaneously. Even if, let's say, you're working in finance today, do I go to the pub? Do I try and get
sure.
closer to my manager, or do I go home and get an early night?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on what you value. That's the most important thing. I think that we have a set of values, and sometimes we value more things than others, so they go to the top of the list, so to speak. And I think quite early, because I had a car crash that was nearly fatal when I was 19. And it just made me look at things a bit differently. And I thought, wow, I might not get another chance as close as that to survive again.
Right.
So let me show up and try to be a bit um, different, not to compare to other people, but I felt like I was a bit reckless. I had addictive tendencies, and I didn't want to be that character anymore. I felt like I really wanted to sort of show up and with a sense of integrity and shape that what I thought a healthy masculine young guy would be. But these were just all ideas, and I just thought, well, how would that version show up? So that
Yeah.
meant going to the gym. Um, and if we fast forward a little bit, my story is that I ended up becoming sober and not drinking anymore.
Hmm.
So that was a choice that I made because I didn't want to do the other. I didn't want to keep doing what I had previously been doing. I wanted to show up differently. I wanted to excel, not so much just for the work, but for myself. And I
Yeah.
think that that was a nice excuse. The work was a nice excuse why I could go about like trying to have some healthy habits that I put in place every single day when I didn't have
Yeah.
any at all. I had zero. I was the most ill-disciplined teenager, I think. So, and then eventually I managed to turn it around. Um, but, I think that that's important in shaping your own healthy masculinity along the way.
Hmm. So when you turn up, let's use Ralph Lauren as an example because
Yeah.
everybody knows those images. They look so glamorous and so sophisticated. What is the atmosphere actually like on set of all of the things that people wouldn't know about when they're just looking at the image online?
It's so
What's
interesting
the
because
atmosphere like?
when you look at an image, you go, "Oh, that's so glamorous! It's so beautiful." But really, it's quite a structured thing. You maybe get to the shoot first thing in the morning if you're in a studio or in a house or on location. If you're on location, it's very different to going into a studio because in a studio, you go there, you wait, hi, and then you suddenly go into makeup. You wait in makeup, then they put the clothing on, and you're still waiting whilst the photographer's sorting things out. The brand themselves, someone might from the brand might come and say hello and introduce themselves, but you're still waiting until suddenly the set's all ready and you can go in and shoot. And you're
Mm,
probably sitting there with stuff in your hair, makeup on your face. So behind the scenes, it's not always as glamorous as it looks, and there's a lot of waiting around. But there's something quite beautiful about working with something that's established. There's something quite privileged about being able to work with something that's taken years to build and you're getting a chance to represent that. But
mm,
when you're quite young, James, you don't actually see it that way. It takes a while for
right.
you to get out of your own head. Because as a young model, you come in and you think, oh, yeah, it's all about me. But it really isn't all about you.
Mm.
It's really about the brand that you're presenting. So,
What's the mindset
lots
that
of.
you have to
So,
what's like the mindset that you get into when you're posing and you have to have that kind of mojo about you?
well, the mindset is that if you're relaxed with yourself, you're just going to go in there and work with the camera because you've been on set before. So,
Mm,
if you, for me, going on set is not a big deal at all. But for some people, are very apprehensive if it's your first, second, third, or even your 10th time. It's still a bit weird and new. But if you've been doing it for a while, you can feel very comfortable just recognizing that the photographer's trying to achieve this. You're looking for different angles. Maybe you're trying to emote a certain feeling for the brand. Maybe they might think that they want you to be powerful, aristocratic, um, and bit up yourself, perhaps. Or it might be you're just super relaxed and super cool. So it depends on what the brand
mm,
or the actual project that you're doing, the shoot that you're doing is all about that day. I mean, I remember like speaking to one of the guys behind the scenes at Victoria's Secret before the girls go out. They're three words you've got to think of: powerful, confident, sexy. So that's the emotion you've got to feel when the girls go out on the runway back in the day.
right.
So a good director, a good brand that is really looking to bring out the best in you and the day and the shoot itself might really try to get to the feeling in the heart of what you're trying to present that day.
Mm,
At least that's the way that I came across it. And I notice sometimes that when they don't say that, you're just sitting there moving around, not knowing what you're doing. But
yeah.
if you know your art, you know your skill, you know how to work with a camera, you know you can be relaxed, then I think those emotions get picked up quite beautifully. And I think some of the best photographers I've ever seen, whose work I really admire and that I've ever worked with, manage to capture that essence of you in the moment which isn't just about you, it's about the brand and the feeling, because that's really what marketing is. Marketing is just really selling feelings. So when you're
Right.
looking at
Yeah.
Ralph Lauren, that what are the words that you think of Ralph Lauren? So I'm going to ask you this question.
Mm.
What are the words when you think of someone like a brand like Ralph Lauren?
Yes. Successful, sophisticated, family,
Yeah,
uh, wholesome,
yeah,
Ivy League,
yeah.
kind of like it's like a fantasy, really. Everything's
Luxury,
perfect.
luxury.
There's no
Yeah,
grit to Ralph Lauren. It's
cool.
very kind of perfect. Yeah.
Yeah, so I love that those words when you think them stimulate an emotion within you and everybody when you put on that piece of clothing, that jacket, those trousers, maybe the way that you've done your belt the day, or even looking at the
Mm.
stars, that means that for that moment, if you've got wearing a Ralph Lauren label, you are emoting those things which makes you feel proud of yourself, happy with yourself. I'm associated because the mind actually thinks in association. So when I've gone away and looked at modeling and thinking what it all represents, it's all about association. I'm selling an association that you get to feel. So when I worked with Burberry for 3 years, it was like these are the associations: heritage, English, luxury, sophisticated, high end, right? And
Mm.
that's what you're going to feel when you buy a Burberry piece or even a Ralph Lauren piece. These are the pieces that you hope to feel when you wear that thing. That's why people will spend a fortune on labels, because that association of the emotion they will get to feel when they wear that clothing or have that bag.
Yeah. Now that you have that kind of consciousness and you've really seen behind the curtain, does that make
Yeah.
you a bit less enamored by brands and the luxury kind of
That's a
marketing?
really, really good question. And the truth is, yes.
Yeah.
And the truth is, yes, only because, but I would say the truth is, yes, I'm less enamored, but I still enjoy beautiful pieces. I still enjoy beautiful
Mm.
clothing. I love style. I love beautiful things and elegant things. I always have. And if um, I may not spend a fortune on things like I used to do when I was in my 20s, like clothing, I spend like a fortune on clothing in my 20s. But now I only get really key pieces, and I call them the James Heritage pieces that I always keep. And I have a
Mm.
certain few things that will stand the test of time, but there's certain things that I don't need to spend a fortune on.
Yeah. And I find with clothing, there are some things that give you that really satisfying feeling, and you feel like, man, I'm going to have this for years. And every time I put
Yeah,
it on, it feels incredible. And
yeah.
it's not always correlated really to the price of the item. Like this jacket, this is a Polo Ralph Lauren jacket. It was
Hmm.
$700. I don't love it that much, honestly. Like it's nice. It's a navy linen blazer, but when I put
Yeah.
this on, I don't get the same level of feeling that I might do from. I have a cricket sweater from Ralph Lauren,
Okay.
the half
Okay.
half the price, but I love that thing. Every time I wear it, I feel great. I can imagine myself wearing that with my kids in 10 years' time. And,
Yeah.
it's still like part of my personal style and it's still part of my lifestyle. So the amount that you spend on stuff, it doesn't always correlate. Like I love Wrangler jeans. They're $50 each.
Yeah. So I think that everything has its place. I do have a thing that I've learned since, working in the fashion industry is that if I go into a shop and I might be looking for something, I might not be looking for something. But if I go in there, I absolutely cannot take that jacket off or the jumper off or whatever. I've got a big thing for jackets. I really like a lot of jackets.
Mm,
But if I don't absolutely love it, meaning I can't take it off, I won't buy it. But if I can't
right.
take it off, I know I've got to buy it because I noticed that the clothes that I keep are the ones that I really felt attachment and an attraction to immediately. And
Mm,
some of my pieces that I've had for a long period of time are because that I felt amazing when I first received it. And I thought, wow, that's so good. I've got to keep it. So, for instance, I have a Dolce Gabbana blue velvet dinner jacket.
mm.
And I've had that for over 10 years and I absolutely love that. And it's not going anywhere because the feeling that I have, if you can even see the smile, is just like, that's such a unique, beautiful piece that I want to keep that.
Yeah.
And I have a lovely Burberry overcoat, not the ones that most people think. I chose to go a bit of a different route. It's like a charcoal and it's
Mm,
amazing. And I'm keeping that. It's not going anywhere. And that jacket's way over. 2K, but I was like, I've
Yeah.
got to keep that. So certain things I have an attraction to, that cost a lot of money, and certain things I have an attraction to that don't cost a lot of money. I've got sneakers from Zara that I absolutely love. Do you know how much they are?
Mm.
They're like
Yeah,
30
yeah,
euros. I'm like, these are great. They just really, I really like them. So,
yeah.
it just depends on the personality, depends on what you want. But I always think that if you buy something and you're really satisfied and love it when you pick it up, it's going to have some duration. It's going to spend some time with you. And I think that pieces or clothes can really also represent a period of time for you if you pick them wisely.
Absolutely. I think that most men have that kind of sentiment towards something at least. If
Yeah.
it's not clothing for them, it might be a car or it might be a musical instrument. It could be a
Watches,
tool.
all.
Yeah, watches. That's a funny one. Yeah.
I know you play
It's
the guitar.
interesting.
As you play the guitar,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah,
have
that's
you
true.
have you had some guitars from when you were a kid and you've kept, or
I
how's that
actually
work?
haven't, which I kind of regret. But what's funny is, so this is my main guitar. This is the second one of these that I've had. So I've
Okay,
had this style since I was 16. When I moved to America, I didn't bring it with me. I just sold it. And
right.
then within a year, I'd bought another one.
Okay,
So, but now I would hate to get rid of this.
sure.
So yeah, but no, I'm not a super sentimental person about material objects, and I think that's because I've moved so much.
Mm,
I've valued the freedom of not being tied down by possessions. This is the first apartment I've ever had, and I'm 26, sorry, 27. This is the first apartment I've ever had where I've bought furniture. I've always
amazing.
lived in like furnished apartments or moved in with somebody that had furniture. I'd never gone and bought mattresses and, tables and sofas like that. But doing it for the first time was actually really nice.
Yeah.
Having said that, I get the itching feeling that I probably won't be staying here and keeping all of this for too much longer.
It's interesting you talk about the freedom aspect because I think that's a huge part that if you're not attached to certain things, you can let them go. I really want to tell a really interesting story that happened to me
Yeah.
about, I don't know, 8 years ago. Um, my friend had done a campaign for a company called Orlebar Brown, and Orlebar Brown did the James Bond swim shorts for Daniel Craig. And I remember looking at the campaign, I'd never seen it before, and I was like, "Oh, that's really cool!" And that's my friend who's in it. I was like, "Oh, I'd really, really like to do that." You never know how things are going to come about. You don't have any influence on whether you get to do a certain project or not. It's sometimes it's really luck of the draw. But if you fit a certain mold, you are obviously a higher percentage chance. But what actually happened to me is that the year that my friend had done it, that summer that they had presented their first, if you send in a picture or a snap of you with these shorts on somewhere in the world and we like it, we will post it on our site. But if it's that good, you have a chance to win something quite bigger, which is you win thousands of pounds worth of clothes, plus you get to go in our new campaign, which gets presented in GQ.
Mm.
So that summer, I remember being in Spain in Tarifa with my girlfriend, which is the southern tip where they do all the windsurfing in just about an hour or so from Marbella. And I was here for a friend's wedding, and we went down there, and I had just this idea. I was like, she said to me, "You've got to enter that competition." I was like, "I'm a model. I shouldn't really be entering any competition, really." And she goes, "Look, just do it. It's a bit of fun, you know." Goes, "You might win. You never know." I was like, "Okay." And the funny thing is that the prior to us going down, I'd gone to the sample sale because an old friend of mine worked for the company. And so I went and bought loads of shorts and loads of clothes just because I really liked the product. It was a really beautiful product.
Mm.
And long story short is I got my girlfriend to take a couple of pictures and I said, "This is what I want. Sand, me jumping with the shorts, and then blue sky. That's it." And I said, because
Mhm.
in modeling and in campaigns, the things that are most catching are simplicity, are simple to look at. And when I look behind you and I'm talking to you, you've got this beautiful picture that says simplicity.
Yeah, it's I designed this actually.
Brilliant, right? So
Yeah.
simplicity is actually how the brain and the mind work to see what we like, whether we focus on it or not. So when you're looking for clothes, if you have a nice colored jacket, blue, and then you've got like a lighter blue or a greeny aquamarine t-shirt, and then underneath you've got a plain piece of trousers. Maybe you've gone for white trousers, but that is really simple and pleasant for the eye to look at. It's not too demanding. It's very easy for us to see. And when I understood this, looking at psychology behind modeling, photo shoots, looking at pictures of me when I looked great and when I didn't, I was like, it's all about the simplicity. So I decided that that's what we want to take. And the picture that we ended up taking, I presented to Orlebar Brown just with a hashtag, and they wrote to me and they said, "We really like your picture. Thank you for sending it and sharing it. And we're going to put you on the shortlist for, the prize." Fast forward a couple of months, I didn't hear anything from them. And I walk into the next sample sale, and the guy that I knew from the shop, he said, you wouldn't believe it, James. We didn't know, but you won our prize. And I said, what did I win? They said, well, you're featured in GQ right now with a full spread with your picture that your girlfriend took you on Instagram. And, so you don't need to buy any of these clothes. We can give you as much as you want. So
Wow.
what actually happened was I won the whole GQ prize in that year. And, I was just had a nice spread with a picture just of a Photoshop, just of those simple things. And that's actually the cover picture that I use for my podcast for the Super Soul Model
Yeah.
series.
I thought it was
And that
that
was
one
the,
you were describing.
and yeah, so it holds a lot of weight. It holds a lot of energy because it was just such a high vibe moment of those simple things that came together. And bless Orlebar Brown, because they got bought out by Chanel, so they're now part of Chanel company. And they are a really good bunch of people that are putting together some fantastic fabrics and clothing for men's stuff. I really like the simple stuff, not heavy patterns and so forth. So the simple pieces are really, really beautiful, and that's what I like. So I was really thrilled about how these stories come about with simplicity, with pieces, and understanding how the psychology of things work when you present yourself really well.
When you're a model, obviously your main, value is your appearance. As a man, how have you noticed that has been valued as you've aged and you go through your 30s, 40s, and now you're 50, right?
Yeah.
So, for a woman, it's kind of seen as, oh, well, when you're in your 20s, you can be a supermodel, 30s, 40s, 50s, less so. What's that been like for a man working in the industry?
What you mean with the appearance alone?
Yeah, like, do you feel like it's got harder? Has it got easier? Has it just been different as you age, the way that people treat you and the kind of jobs they book you for?
I think the thing that's really interesting is eventually you don't take yourself too seriously, James. I think that's what happens. Because in your 20s, you might take yourself seriously, 30s, maybe still more so, and you still got a point to prove. In your 40s, that becomes less important. And by the time you get to me, it's like, I just don't care. So there's a lot of liberation, and the difference between the younger me and the version that I am now is that the wisdom and the experience just represents a lot of character and strength when you present yourself to people. So I can be sitting in a room with billionaires and I hold myself very comfortably. I help a lot of high net worth people now, giving them executive wellness strategies, to manage stress and to manage challenge, right? And some people come with different sets of challenges. The younger me wouldn't be able to handle that because, I've still got a point to prove.
Right.
I don't have a point to prove anymore because I know that I'm good enough. And that sometimes takes many years and many errors till you get to the point where, do you know what I have and what I'm bringing to the table is more than enough. And I know it's adding value. I think the thing that happens in your 20s and early 30s is that you need to be validated. And the most important validation when you go to any casting or see any brand is recognizing that I have something incredibly valuable to bring to this brand. And I hope that if we work together, we can exude that and bring it out. And I think that when I approach or I'm asked to do anything these days, which is less so, I want to bring that great value to the table. Because before you're not sure what you're bringing. I'm just bringing my face and I'm bringing my body and I'm a coat hanger. But that's not
Yeah.
actually who you are. You're not a coat hanger. You're a personality and a character that can add value, and you're an energetic being as well. And if your energy is really low on a day you do a shoot, I guarantee it's going to be poor. And when you are in a good mood on a shoot, it really does make a massive difference. So feeling good really absolutely pops out through the pictures.
I think that when you're in your 20s as well, when you're working, let's say you're working in finance, you're in an office with hundreds of other guys,
Mm,
or you are, a model where it's like you're going up to the casting, they're looking at hundreds of other people
sure.
potentially for that job. It can be hard not to just feel like a commodity, right? Or
Yeah,
just like
absolutely. Yeah.
another cog in the machine. That's one of the things that I love about entrepreneurship or having some kind of side hustle. I was recently encouraging one of the guys in my program in the Gentleman's Institution. He had this idea for being a style consultant. And I really encouraged him because I said, even if you don't make a lot of money or it doesn't become a full-time job, I think you need that identity of this is my unique thing. This is the value that I can bring to other people that isn't defined by my job at JP Morgan or my position on this sports team, which might get dropped at any given moment.
Yeah, totally. And funnily enough, because I think within the first 2 years of modeling, I remember like being in a job in location in South Korea, in Seoul. And whilst I was out there, I was like, I had an idea for a company, and I was drinking this aloe vera juice, and I thought, do you know what I should do? I should bring this back into the UK because, like people are looking for other health drinks other than just Coca-Cola and Sprite and stuff. And what happened a couple of years later, there's a mass explosion in healthy drinks in the UK.
Mm,
And I endeavored to bring and did bring aloe vera drinks to the UK, which were made essentially in originally in Korea. And I got them into the top bars and hotels, all the five-star hotels in London, and got them to be part of a cocktail mix that you could have as well.
nice.
But so that didn't just define me that, oh, I'm a male model. I've also, business minded.
When did
And
that start to
I'm
turn on for you? Going more
ah
into the entrepreneurship thing.
definitely when I started traveling, when I began to see the world a little bit more, and I thought, oh, this is working really well here. What if that could work in the UK? So that's
Mm,
well, basically when 2 years into modeling, I was like already thinking like that. I knew I wanted to
yeah.
do something because I remember when I was voicing out what I wanted in terms of a new job, I said I wanted maybe something entrepreneurial as well that I could sink my teeth into. Yeah, so I do think that making sure that you have more things going on than just one thing, you've got more strings to your bow is a bit more stimulating than just thinking, oh, I'm just waiting to go on set and be photographed again and again. Because I didn't think there was enough value in that for me, because I realized, like all of us, we are all multifaceted. We're all multifaceted human beings with different skill sets and different geniuses. And I guess, I wanted to discover what my genius was. And it
Mm,
took a long time to figure out what that was, but essentially it just rolled up in being a really, really good communicator with people, because you have to get
mm,
on with people in different countries, different languages. You don't always speak the same language, but can you get the work done that's required of you? And I just really so enjoy traveling with modeling, and still do, meeting different people from different walks of life, and being able to come together for something greater than just yourself.
mm-hmm.
So your genius is being able to style and help guys, and hopefully draw out the inner gentleman, and you're being able to hopefully not only discuss that and communicate that, but also to demonstrate what that's like as well.
I'm still figuring out what that is for me, I
Yeah,
think,
we're all
what that inner
figuring things
genius
out,
is. Yeah.
Yeah, we're all
Yeah.
figuring it out. We're all figuring it out. And I don't think you need to fully know, but for me in my, last 2 decades plus, I managed to just have a little introspection, or a lot of introspection, to be able to go, oh, I think this is where I'm gravitating towards, and it feels good.
Mm. So when did you decide to no longer live in the UK full time? And then did you go straight to Marbella, or was there a
No,
phase in
no,
between?
there's always twists and turns along the way. But I guess when I first started modeling, I was in the UK, and then I did a lot of traveling to and fro.
Hmm.
And then I ended up spending a lot of time in Tokyo as well. So I spent pretty much most of 2 years in and out of Tokyo. And then after doing so much traveling, James, I decided I think I want to be just in one place, grounded, because you feel a bit like a turtle with a suitcase ready to go off to another destination, which is really fun. But after a while, your relationships don't enjoy the continuity, and you want that continuity, because we need each other. And whilst you can see friends in different countries, that's great. One of the things that's super important is continuity with the relationships that matter to you. So I stayed in London pretty much for 7 years straight, occasional jobs, but not long ones. And pretty much after a period of that time, I moved to Marbella only a year and a half ago. But my family had a place not so far from here. But when my parents weren't very well, they asked if I could come and look after them. So I decided, fortunately, with what I was doing in my work, I was flexible enough, and that's exactly the day before COVID happened and everyone got locked down. So I came to Spain the day before lockdown in March to 2020.
Wow. And it was a rough one in Spain. It was
Yeah, it
very
was a rough
tough.
one in Spain, but the blessing was, as I was in a beautiful place, I was very fortunate that I had a very large mountain behind me where I could walk by myself and no one was there. And, privileged to a lot of extent, but I didn't feel a lack of freedom for myself. And also because I'd spent a lot of time doing introspection, I've been meditating every day for like over 20 years. The idea of being locked down didn't feel difficult to me, whereas it would for other people, because I already had, tapped into a place where I'd already feel relaxed no matter what happens, accepting what happens. And I think that also added to another string of understanding the human mind, being a healthy masculine to take care of people, because that's a massive part of being not only a gentleman, but the healthy masculine, to really, are you taking care of your people?
Mm.
And stepping into that position, because a lot of people get frightened when the responsibility kicked in. That was certainly me when I was a teenager. When I heard the word responsibility, it was like run. But now I embrace it because it actually leads to greater happiness, more money, and a lot more freedom.
Mm.
And so I am really grateful for things like lockdown, and I'm really grateful for being able to be in a position to help the people I care about. And that's also helped me with the work that I'm doing now.
So what was the transition and the inspiration for you to become an entrepreneur in terms of executive wellness coaching? And what
Yeah.
exactly does that mean, those three words
So,
together?
so the executive wellness coaches. So I'm basically helping leaders and highly influential people, from high net worth individuals and families. I'm helping them with their wellness in a holistic sense, something for the mind, something for the body. Everyone at every stage of affluence is dealing with different sets of challenges. Sometimes it's relationships, sometimes it's physical health, and sometimes it's a mixture of all of those things. So I help guide people and these types of clients of mine to find greater inner peace, essentially,
Hmm.
and certain ways to look at things, understanding how the currency of energy actually helps you feel and get on a trajectory of well-being. And I'll give you an example what that actually means. I'm working with a client right now who is very good at golf. He is very, very successful, and yet he still finds challenging looking after certain amounts of people whilst making sure that he's not over people pleasing, because that's put him on his back several times before. You'd think that a multimillionaire would find that very, very difficult, that you could say no, but you'll be surprised how many people find challenges not understanding how their mind works or other people work. One of the blessings I've had, really, through understanding health and wellness and how the mind works, is just understanding if your thinking or your actions are off, I can show you what's going to happen that way. And I'm here to kind of correct if your issues are going to get out of control, and put a stop loss before anything happens. So it's a very technical, energetic understanding of what I do, but essentially it's just correcting the mindset of people who are performing at a very high level.
Hmm. So if somebody has, you know, accumulated great wealth or they're in a very successful position in their career, often that might have come with a bit of a trade-off where they've neglected other parts of their life. Am I right?
Spot on.
Hmm.
You've neglected maybe your health, or you've neglected maybe your personal relationships at some level.
Do you think that is actually a necessary trade-off, or do you think that's maybe actually counterproductive?
Well, that's where I come in, James, you see, because
Hmm.
I come in here to bring the balance, you see.
Yeah.
I think that life is a bit like a trivial pursuit. where you need to have all the certain pies. You've got to have your financial things in place, your relationships in place, your personal health in place. Are you decent with your children? That's still personal relationships, but that's essential, because a lot of people grow up and have trauma. Everybody grows up with some level of trauma. But what are you going to do about it? You're going to turn it into something good, or you're going to just keep living and keep telling that same old story that I'm not good with people.
Mm.
And really, essentially, we need as human beings to be able to connect with other people to feel happiness, because happiness isn't something you just have by yourself. It's usually something we share with other people that we value.
Mm. I think
And
something that, no, go
mm,
ahead.
no, and I just wanted to sort of just add to that is that your health is also part of your happiness, because if you're not happy with yourself, you're not going to be taking care of your body. So early on in modeling, I realized I was not happy with myself, so I needed to take care of the body. And that's when I understood I'd take care of the body and feeding it the right nutrition and maybe omitting toxic things now, like drugs and alcohol. Maybe that's when I understood needed to go into the mind, because the mind directs the body. So the mind is like the driver and the body is the vehicle, and your soul or your spirit is the experience of this life called James Lawley.
I find that maybe some guys will relate to this that are in their 20s or 30s as well, is when you're in the building stage, it can be hard to know whether to try and build all of those parts of the Trivial Pursuit segment
Yeah.
equally, or to kind of neglect one for now. Like, I think when I look at mine, my priorities are obviously career and health together, because I really do see one as benefiting the other. I mean, like, if I was 300 pounds, people would not listen to me for
No.
advice. It's just, it's simple as that. But at the same time, I would say that I don't have a lot of love in my life. I neglect that side of my life for
Okay.
the sacrifice of the others. And I probably also, what else? I think it's sometimes I kind of put my own happiness on a bit of a back burner, or I don't make time for things that just make me intrinsically happy.
Okay. So, I had a challenge with a client that I had a little while ago, and I said, "What makes you happy?" He goes, "Playing the guitar." I said, "How often do you do that?" He goes, "Not enough." I was like,
Mm,
"Well, just, commit to 20 minutes a day." I
yeah.
said, "Why?" Because that's actually changing the chemicals inside of your body.
Hmm.
And it's like, well, what does that actually mean? I said, let's look at you. Let's be honest. You're very successful in the world of other people, but not to me. And he says, why? Well, what do you mean? I said, you're financially successful, but that's only one aspect. True success is being able to feel fulfilled. And I said, are you feeling fulfilled? He goes, no. I said, well, that's not success then, is it?
Hmm.
And what gives me the right to say this? The only thing that gives me the right to say this is because, I've nearly died twice, and I recognize that my life isn't just about me, it's about the lives I touch. And if I don't take care of my health and wellness, then I'm really no good to nobody, because then I'm just a liability.
Yeah.
And I said, well, I want to be someone who leads from the front then. And I'm not doing it to say I'm better than you or you need to listen to me. It's not about listening to me. It's just to really point out. I was like, hey, if someone who really cares about you is able to point out a discrepancy and, wanted to be corrected, that's where I come in. And
Mm.
people are, I feel very fortunate that people want to come in and, ask me for that wellness advice, because I will tell it to you straight. So, with this chap, he was overweight. I said, play the guitar. Why? I was like, because it makes you happy. You're not going to hurt anybody. It makes you happy. There's a difference between going to the pub and thinking that makes you happy. Really, what
Yeah.
you like in the pub is the community of people,
Yes.
and then the
Absolutely.
freedom of thinking the thoughts that you think when you're drinking. It makes you don't think the thoughts that really trouble you.
Mm.
So smoking is an opportunity, or sold as something to be stress free, when it's actually just creating more stress, but it's the opportunity to think that you're not thinking about your problems at the time you're having a cigarette. I know that because
Mm.
that was me. And
Interesting.
alcohol was an excuse for me to run from the challenges that I was facing, because I was overusing it as a way to go, I don't have to deal with those troubles. But, 3 days later, when I've eventually come back to myself, I'm dealt with the problems and perhaps with a little bit more heat. So that's why I don't drink anymore. But you can enjoy lovely wine and a beer and do whatever you like. But for me, I understood what it was doing for me. So your happiness is essential for your well-being. And I think investing in it every day is really worthy. And I love the way that you're telling me before we had this recording that you've been running and taking care of yourself. I mean, it shows, James. But now the other aspect of the well-being is what's touching some happiness levels. I know you play some music, so make sure you keep doing that because that will make you feel happy. Creativity is an absolute essential outlet for our personal fulfillment. Remember,
Yeah.
success equals fulfillment, and that has to come in a few different areas.
And a lot of those things that make people intrinsically happy or fulfilled, they are free or they're actually quite easy and simple. I
Yeah,
was journaling on it, and it was like um, sitting in the sunshine, having coffee, playing guitar, playing tennis, playing golf, reading. Yeah, it's like it's so basic. Like none of this is
yeah,
$500 dinners or
no,
even when you're driving. Like I love driving convertibles. It doesn't really matter like the value of the car or the badge of the car. It's the experience of the wind in my hair and the sunshine and the feeling of freedom. I
totally.
don't care
So
if
remember,
anybody's looking.
so do you remember we were talking about earlier? I loved what you just said there because we were talking earlier about like different brands represent different emotions.
Yeah.
So Hermes, I worked with Hermes for a couple of years. They represent ultra high luxury, sophistication, discretion. Different. We talked about Ralph Lauren, Ivy League, luxury, home, family. So when your happiness and your fulfillment is by having that hair, the convertible represents a freedom when you're in the car.
Mm.
That's really, really beautiful. And when you're doing your work and you're helping young men become gentlemen, what's the emotion fulfilling? Do you know?
Mm.
Because the reason
I
why you
don't
do
know
your
off the
work
top
is
of
to
my
actually
head.
feel the emotion, right? And then hopefully you're allowing the gentlemen that are coming to you to feel a certain emotion too, which is empowered. So you're empowering.
Mm. And I definitely see, parts of my former self in a lot of the people that either I'm working with directly or making videos for. So, I do talk a lot about the importance of social connection for men. And I think one of the reasons why is I had a period of my time when I was very lonely. Like I
Yeah.
didn't have any close friends. I didn't really know many people. Now that's not what my life is like, and I'm able to appreciate and recognize the difference. I also realize all of the stupid beliefs and habits that I had back then that were holding me
Yeah.
back that I couldn't realize myself.
And that's really beautiful to actually own that going. That was a part of myself that was lacking. And here I am turning it around, trying to actually empower other people to create a beautiful community of empowerment for men to become better versions of themselves. If I look into my own expression, I felt I was blessed with a lot of knowledge and a lot of wisdom. And I was very reluctant to share it because I didn't want to be judged for sharing information that seemed probably a bit futuristic, and so it took a bit of time because I was one of the first people in 2004 to quit drinking, quit smoking, and become plant-based. And now, 20 odd years later, it's a very normal thing. But it wasn't when I began. And so I was very reluctant to just go, well, why am I doing that? Well, I don't want to lose muscle mass, but I still want to make sure I'm in harmony with nature and myself because I realized that if I can operate a high energy level, I can create marvelous things.
Hmm. So that was
Because
2004 for you?
2004, so 21 years
Wow.
ago, yeah. And I've got to be completely honest, I've been well for such a long time, that's all I know. And there've been occasional blips, but it's been 1 or 2 days and that's it.
Let's talk a little bit about the wellness lifestyle and how that impacts other parts of your life. So,
I've
the
got to say,
typical,
it
let's
impacts
say,
everything. It impacts
right.
everything.
Like, let's say dating, for example. A typical date is going to be going out for, dinner, bottles of wine, staying out late, maybe getting a little tipsy, and, the kind of nightlife thing. Is that something that you engage in, or you just decided that you would pursue different ways of being social and dating and.
No, I think that the key thing to dating is owning who you are. So any guys listening here is just own who you are. What's your personality like? This is what I like. I like going out, so own it, you know? For me, I own the fact that didn't drink. But, I didn't want to stop other people drinking, so you drink. But I always say, what's working for me doesn't have to work for everybody else. It just works for me. So I don't drink. So I'd go to weddings, stag do's. I only went to a couple of stag do's before I realized perhaps this wasn't a good idea for me because I was picking up the pieces of everybody at the end. But with dating, no, James, I think the most important thing was dating is I just owned who I am, took a lady out for dinner, and you look after, having lovely. She may have some, a wine, but when I took my girlfriend out for the first time, it was just like, I don't drink, you have a drink. That's not a big deal.
Yeah, yeah.
And
I
and
had a
we
funny,
did, we went clubbing. We went clubbing. She had a drink. I didn't, and we were with a
yeah,
bunch of 20 other friends. Um, yeah, I was like, he's the only one who doesn't drink here. That's not a big deal. So I just own it. I'm like happy to be me because it works for
yeah.
my energy.
That confidence is actually very attractive. I did 6 months totally sober, and I didn't really know if I was ever going to drink again as well. So when I would talk about it, I didn't say, "Oh, I'm not drinking at the moment." I would say, "I don't drink." And actually, I found that was really empowering, and people actually
Okay.
were attracted to that confidence. The problem that I find now is me and pretty much all of my friends are like semi sober, if not fully sober, but we still like going to bars. So sometimes we
Sure.
go in the bar and we're like, oh, well, at least one of us is going to get a drink. Can't go and have 3 Diet Cokes.
Yeah, I think the thing is just own who you are and have fun. And I think the thing that makes healthy masculine men very attractive is self-control
Mm,
and self-discipline. And in my case, I recognized I was so ill-disciplined. I went to a level where I was like, I need to be disciplined. So I have certain things I do every day, regardless, my rituals that, I do every day and have done for like 20 years. And I sometimes add new things and sometimes I stop them and try something else.
mm,
But I've got certain non-negotiables that create that self-discipline, and women find men who have self-discipline with the ability to make choices saying, can you turn down sex, for
mm,
something really important? That's really difficult. Most men won't. Can you prohibit spending money on unnecessary things and demonstrate that? That shows self-discipline, you
mm.
know, and being able to say no to things and walking away and having discipline, saying, that's enough. You might have a few drinks and you go, that's it for me tonight. Can you
Yeah,
actually do that? Because the younger me could not do that. So I needed to get
yeah,
to the point where I was like, I can actually do that. And I happily own it now. And when people say, oh, do you think you'll ever drink again? I'm like, well, the truth is I don't know. At the moment, no, but we'll
mm,
see. So I never want to put myself in a position like never again. I always want to say, well, I don't know yet, but at the moment, this is how I'm rolling.
yeah. I couldn't do the self-discipline and self-control with alcohol until I took a break. And I don't know how it happened, but when I started again, it was my birthday. I was in New York. I was at my favorite bar in the world. I said, I'm going to have a scotch. It's my birthday. I'm fine.
Hmm.
I think I can do this. And I remember the next day thinking, oh, wow, like nothing went terribly wrong. Like I just had one drink and it was fine. And then for some reason after that, I was able to just, as soon as I would feel remotely tipsy or like I'm getting there, whereas before I would be calling another round in and really
Yeah,
getting
yeah.
on it. Now it was like, okay, I immediately stopped and I immediately didn't want to drink anymore. So
Hmm.
I'm so glad that that kind of switch happened just by taking a
That's.
break. And
Do you know
heard
how
from
it
a few people.
happened? Do you know how it happened or not really?
I have no clue. Yeah, no
Okay, well
clue.
that's great. I say my case is I was a bit more of a rock star. I pull everyone with me to a bar or a club, and I remember my sister and my friend taking me aside one day. It was like, "Listen, buddy, we don't know what's going to happen when we go out. We know we're going to have a good time, but we don't know what you're going to do." And I didn't want to be that character anymore who was reckless and, you never knew what was going to happen. Not that we get
Mm,
anybody in danger, but it could make people uncomfortable. And I think that when people really care about you, you know, it's about standing up to what you think is important. And maybe you're not there yet. And I certainly wasn't. But, I had an idea of the type of guy and man I wanted to be, but I was like nowhere near it. But it was just one little step at a time. And I think the only way you get there is by having discipline.
mm,
And I think that really shows to women, especially when a man can demonstrate discipline, because it shows that you can take care, and produce calm. And I thought for me, I need to learn how to really demonstrate calm, poise, confidence, steadiness when things around you are shaking. And quite frankly, that's happening for everybody. Everybody's got something going on in their life that's challenging and difficult. But the key thing is can you demonstrate self-control and self-discipline and find your calm? Because that's what I'm doing with my clients. I help them, really like get into a place of calm when life's shaking around them. Because when you've got billions of dollars flying around and you're thinking, I need to make sure I can make good decisions because a lot of lives depend on this, that's where they come to me. And
What would you say are some of the main problems of these types of clients, like the 1% of
relationships,
people? Really?
relationships,
Wow.
relationships and health, relationships and health, because you might have neglected something, you know, the ability to make good decisions financially are completely there. The ability to make money is there. Sometimes the ability to take care of the people really close to you, like your family, is not there. Have you been in contact with your children, recently? Have you given them their attention, or have you always been giving your attention to the work, and the business? Because, children can grow up, and if they are absent with no parent around, they could say that my family's very wealthy, but my dad was never around for me. So they're going to think that money's a bad thing, but it isn't a bad thing.
Yeah, and that's very common narrative that when I lived in London, I had a girlfriend that was really from that kind of world. Like dad was a hedge fund manager, very expensive private school. But my God, did her and her friends have a lot of issues related to family,
Family. It's usually
Yeah,
absent of a parent. And I think,
yeah.
going back to the Trivial Pursuit thing and understanding how the mind works, because the mind thinks in association. So, when they look at a picture of you, they're thinking, oh, that's James Lawley. He's Gen Z. He's the gentleman guy. Association. It's the quickest way. Stylish gentleman guy. And when they're thinking of me, they're thinking, oh, that initially, if they know me, they'll be like, oh, he's the model. I was like, well, the association now is he helps, you know, wealthy clients find their peace. That's really what he's doing. And so when we're going back to, I can't remember, what was the question you had?
But the main problems that they have.
The main problem is the relationship
Yeah.
or their own personal health. Because if you don't take care of your health, you can't perform and you can't think clearly.
Is there
And it,
a justification for it in their mind of like they probably know deep down they've been neglecting their family life? How do they justify it to themselves?
well, it's not necessarily a justification. It's just, this is what I'm good at. This is what I'm going to focus on. And
Okay.
remember, if their parent was absent, why would they be any different? Because they haven't been taught. It's usually we need to pass down the things, we need to learn the things that we weren't passed down. So if you're learning how to understand the mind and take care of the body, this was something in my family that my family didn't do. So I went to my dad, bless him, passed away 5 years ago, just after COVID, but he wasn't in great physical shape. He didn't choose the right foods and didn't choose the right nutrition and drank a whiskey, two whiskeys a day for 40 years. And that just taught me at a young age that we lean towards habits that don't necessarily empower us, but we don't know any other way. So I made it a commitment to myself as, even though that's what I know, I'm going to find a way to be a better version of myself. And even though I was caring for my dad in my last year, he said to me, which was really beautiful, because I think a man's relationship with his father is really important. And if anyone's father's still alive, just tell them that you love them, and and even if you've got judgments against them, just remember to say, I know you've been doing the best you can the whole time, because really that's what every guy's trying to do. In fact,
Yeah.
every human being. And as soon as you can get to the point of going, everyone's doing their best they can, it creates all the tension release, because they didn't know any better, because they weren't taught any better. But now we're at an age called the information age, where we can learn and have access to so much more knowledge and wisdom that's good for us. And if we
Yeah.
use it wisely, then we can pass down through charities, philanthropic events, and things like that, and podcasts and books, where we can empower other people to go, hey, listen, now you've got a choice. Even though your parents and guardians weren't, the best, they were doing the best they could with what they knew, but they didn't have the information age. But we have privy to it now.
Yeah. It's
And that's what
interesting
you were
with
doing. Yeah.
parents.
Yeah.
We can learn like either by copying them, including their mistakes, or we can look at them and go, they did this very well. They didn't do this very well. Therefore, I'm going to learn and
Yeah.
kind
Yeah.
of rebel against those negative traits. So a lot of the people that you work with have made it, let's say, especially financially. If you were to work with somebody that, let's say, was not as accomplished because they were younger, they were more on that journey, maybe 25, maybe 30, how would you recommend that they lead a more holistic life without, maybe taking too much attention away from their career or their business?
Well, I think career and business is essential when you're young because you've got to find out what you like, what you're good at. And I think making money and making mistakes is important in your 20s. I do think that you want to have fun and have a good time and travel as much as you possibly can. But I think it's quite good time in your 20s and maybe early 30s to try and travel and see the world a little bit and get to meet other people from different backgrounds so you can recognize there is a large difference from different people around the world. Every country I've ever been to, I've always learned something from the culture and the people. And I've tried to take the best of what I've discovered there, and I thought that makes you a more well-rounded person. And I think what makes you know, somebody a lot happier and more fulfilled is, by being patient and looking at the world with not judgmental eyes, but looking at it from going, they just do things differently here. Like in Spain, people do things differently here. They
Yeah.
drive differently than they do in the UK. I'm like, in the UK, people are quite respectful. In Spain,
Hmm.
they don't indicate. So you're like, get over it. Get over the judgment.
Mm.
And in the States, people do things differently. They're a lot more optimistic. And in the UK, maybe not so optimistic. Did you see in Germany, in Sweden, very efficient countries? I'm half Swedish. It's very efficient, right? Their systems and protocols. This is the way we do it. And in Spain, not so much.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's just like, okay, I'm going to just love whatever I get and not play too much judgment and do my best to maintain my own equilibrium. I think anything you can do to take care of your body in your 20s is a really good thing. And
Mm.
I'm not saying don't drink. I'm not saying do what I do. I'm just saying have a good time, but try and find that discipline. Try and find some self-control because that will really help you in business and in life later.
Yeah. Well, a lot of actually being healthier is more the things that you don't do, as well as the things that you do do. So you have this win-win situation where you saved yourself the effort and the energy of doing something that is unhealthy, plus that therefore gives you more energy to go and do, your business or work on your family life or whatever it may be. I'm really trying to find that integration where I'm doing a good amount of work and I'm really making progress there, but I'm not letting every other element of my life like fall down. And
Yeah.
coming back to like the love side of things,
Are we talking
that
romantic love or are we talking
I'm talking
about
about
family love or
everything.
friends?
I think everything. It probably not friends. I'd kind of say that's more just like happiness. But I think, yeah, more of a feeling of like family love. So I don't have a big family. I've got really my two parents and a grandma. But though, when I reflect on that, it reminds me to call my grandma to make sure that I'm speaking regularly with my parents.
Yeah.
I do volunteering where I'm a mentor to a younger kid. So
Nice.
that I would put that in that category as well.
Yeah, I do
Um,
like this thing. I read something somewhere and I really liked it. Is that the people that stay in your life that are friends for a long period of time almost become family in
yeah.
themselves. So if you nurture a relationship, you might not have a big family or have any siblings, but if you have decent people who are in your life and have been in for a while, they can be like extended family. I don't think family just has to be blood, but it can be people who care for you and you might not speak to them all the time, but
Mm,
they're there. I've got friends from, years and years ago and, I might not speak to them for 3, 4 weeks, but they're always there.
yeah,
And when
absolutely.
you're looking to celebrate, they want to be there, and I think that's really beautiful. But relationships, like anything else, just require investment of your time. And when people want to be in your life, they'll find a way to be in your life. And relationships come and go, some for a short time, some for a medium time, some for a long time. but everyone's going to teach you something about yourself.
And I do really believe with the romantic love, I don't think it's good to go looking for that kind of from a place of scarcity of, this segment of my life is missing, therefore I must fill it. I think it's better to feel very fulfilled by everything else in your life. And then, as you said, be who you really are, be natural, be confident about it. And if the right person comes in your way, then that's perfect. But it's not something that I've kind of looked at in the same way that I would look at, a health goal or a money goal and go, okay, we're going to achieve this. I don't think I'm going to achieve finding love. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but
Can I say something? And I don't come from a world where, I'm a bit sort of, I think differently, but I think that's helped me thinking differently. I might be the black sheep of my family, but I don't mind that. I feel like I can share things that maybe other people don't see, but that's probably because I'm quite a deep thinker. But what I recognize is that when you're happy and fulfilled, you're naturally attractive. When you're a young man and you're just happy and you're loving what you're doing, you're loving your work, some things aren't all great, but you're enjoying what you're doing. You've got a good friendship base, you're doing sports and activities or things you enjoy doing. You are going to attract people who are interested in you because you're giving off that vibe. In modeling, we used to have this thing which was like saying is like the casting directors are like dogs, they sniff dogs. So if anyone's got the fear or needy, there's no way you're getting that job, right? But if you come in confident, relaxed, fulfilled, not bothered, there's a very, very strong percentage. And I've got a story I really want to share,
sure.
which is about a casting that I went to years ago for a big brand on Savile Row, which is the main street in London in Mayfair with all the suit companies. And I was going there for a big brand. I won't mention any names, but I was in there standing in the queue, waited an hour to get in. And when I went in, they looked at my book, didn't really look me in the face, went through my whole book, pulled out my card, and that was it. And I felt so dehumanized in that moment. I felt like no one was paying attention. I'm a human being. You're just looking at my card, etc., etc. And I just thought, a lot of modeling in that time, I just thought, why am I doing this? This feels so inhuman in certain ways. You're just looking at a coat hanger and that's it. I'm actually a person with feelings here. And so eventually when I got over myself, I remember speaking to a friend on the phone going, I did that casting. And by the way, if I ever get the chance to work with them, I'm not going to work with them. He goes, yeah. And and I remember coming up to Christmas and I didn't have any money. I was really low on funds and I was like going, I don't know what I'm going to do. And my booker from Models One called me up and she said, oh, by the way, do you remember that casting you did for X brand on Savile Row? I was like, yeah, they've optioned you first option for the campaign. I was like, I don't want to work with them. I don't want to work with them. She goes, what do you mean? I said, that I really felt mistreated when I went to speak to them. She said, well, what happened? And I described what happened. And she goes, listen, they probably had to see thousands of people that day. But listen, you've been selected and they want to work with you. And I said, well, I booked a flight because I want to go back to Sweden to see my mum and dad and the family for Christmas. And they said, listen, you should change this flight. This is an amazing opportunity. Get over yourself. So I eventually put my ego to the side and that job came in and it was very well paid. And it ended up being a campaign which was on a big billboard. But it also, by the time I got to Japan in the month afterwards, I was on the back of Men's Vogue in Japan with that campaign. So sometimes when we're looking at things, we need to get our ego out of the equation and just recognize an opportunity when it comes. And I think that that's also part of being a bit more mature. And I wasn't, and that was a good maturing point for me to just go, put your ego aside a little bit. There might be something. And by the way, I was treated so well on the shoot that day and I gave so much love and appreciation. So sometimes we need to humble ourselves a little bit and put the ego out of the equation to become a better version of ourselves.
That can be very hard to do just alone, can't it? When you have conversations with other people, and you said you spoke to your friend about it, and he really kind of validated you.
Yeah, exactly.
Fuck them.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to speak to somebody that's invested or not invested, in a different way. I speak to my dad. This is kind of funny, but I do my bookkeeping and I show it to my dad like as an accountability thing. Now he doesn't really
Yeah.
understand social media fully, but I know that if I like buy something that's kind of an unnecessary expense, he'll embarrass me about it. And
Okay.
that really helps keep my ego in check of having somebody else to just bounce things off and get their kind of unfiltered, unbiased opinion of just,
It's beautiful.
go
You
and do
need
that in a heartbeat.
accountability from people who are not, who can keep you grounded. And you know, if you become very successful financially, you can, you know, you've got to remember, don't believe the hype, because eventually that hype, that balloon can get popped. And I spoke to a chap earlier in the year, and I said to him, he said he was very interested in working with me. And I said, until you can put your ego aside, I don't think we can work together. So I have to actually step away sometimes,
Mm,
because I recognize that if someone's not going to be willing to take on the information, you cannot grow. And in order to find personal peace, if you've got two different families going on from two different wives, you've got to put your ego aside.
mhm.
And it's very challenging. So, but you know, one of the things that is important is you do need to believe in yourself, and you do need to know that you can demonstrate and do an amazing job at what you do, whatever that career is.
Hmm.
And you've got to believe in yourself, but you've also got to have a little humility along the way, because it actually keeps you grounded. And the people
Mm,
we really admire are the people that are very successful, but are also very down to earth.
yeah.
And by the way,
So,
owning your mistakes is a really wonderful way to keep you down to earth, you know. And
yeah.
that's why I
I mean,
love just going, I'm not perfect, you know, I might be brilliant at being able to convey the right message. I might be able to brilliant to work with really high profile leaders, etc. But let's be honest, I make errors too, and I'm not always perfect, but I'm the first one to put my hand up if I've made a mistake.
that's one of the things I love about the kind of online world, whether you're doing coaching or you're doing a community or just making content, is it doesn't have to be I am the Messiah, I've figured it out, follow me. It can be come on this journey with me. I really love doing that. Not only does it kind of lower the pressure on you and that imposter syndrome, but I think it also makes people realize that maybe what they're aspiring to do or the things that they admire in you are not as out of reach as they might think.
Exactly, and you reminded me of something really important. I read thousands of books by people who've inspired me and have written amazing masterpieces in not only business but health and spirituality and understanding psychology. And when I've gone to meet them, I just recognize they're a human being as well. You know, they have
Mm,
faults, they're just normal. And so it's really important not to put people on pedestals, because recognizing that they're just human as well. And I think that's really important in an understanding that your journey, that wherever you're working towards, is massively achievable as long as you do the work, especially on the days when you don't feel like doing it. One thing that I do for myself is, you know, I hold myself accountable for my healthy habits every day. Even if I'm
mm.
traveling, I do them in a hotel room, you know,
Do you
and
have a
it's just
system that you use to kind of
yeah.
document that or track it to keep yourself accountable?
No, it's just I just do it because I
Just
was
do it.
speaking to a client this morning actually, and he said to me, he goes, "So what do you do?" I said, "Listen, I'm not perfect, but this is the way I interpret it with my own mind's association. If you have success with health, in your relationships, and there's certain things that you're doing that are keeping you feeling good, sleeping well, relaxed, etc., and your body's in good position, because if your body's not well, you cannot work really, you know. And one of the things to be able, you could be a billionaire with not a great deal of health and look at a sunset as a poor man, and both are looking at the same sun but from different conditions. So
Yeah.
the fact of the matter is, the way I see it is, when I turn up to do my habits, my own personal habits, I do it because I know that they're giving me results that help me feel good each day, or at least give me a decent amount of energy, because I know with energy I can create. But if I don't do them, that means I'm lower on the percentage of energy.
Mm,
So I call it, like, if I do them, I get green lights in the day, and if I don't, I don't see any green lights today. So why would you not want to see green lights today? So that's my accountability for showing up again and again. But after a
mm.
while, you just want to do them, James. You just want to do them because that's part of you, and habits
Yeah.
become, you know, normal to you. So I
Yeah.
brush my teeth with my
Absolutely.
left hand. I meditate 20 minutes in the morning. I do a stretch. I do a lot of jumping and movement, so I put a lot more energy in the body. I have a lemon juice, I have a smoothie. These are the types of things that I do to make, and I write my intentions about what do I want to achieve that day. I know you're a big man on lists as well,
Yep,
and I think
yep,
that's important
absolutely.
because when your mind knows what it's trying to achieve that day and trying to do, and you tick it off, accountability.
Yeah, I'm very big on documenting as well because I think when you observe yourself and you hold a mirror to your actions as best as you can, it really makes you reflect on the quality of that decision or the way that you spent your time. And some of the things that I do to be more productive or keep myself accountable are honestly what I think a lot of people would go like, this is the habit of somebody that has OCD, and I did used to have like a OCD when I was a teenager that was a very negative impact on my life,
Okay.
but it has evolved to kind of like this superpower, which is weird, that all of the negative kind of side of it went away. But the ability to, follow systems or make myself do things, it just kind of has like that autist level almost of ease for me. But I had to actually readapt my relationship with it to go like, if I want to write down everything that I'm doing in a day, that isn't like a dysfunctional habit. That's actually really good. But I had to relearn that because a lot of normal people, or even people in my own family, would probably go like, "That's weird. Why would you be doing that?" Like what kind of crazy person writes down what they've done all day on a piece
Well,
of
if you
paper?
think that most people keep, I know people keep journals about certain things, like to tell about their life. And that's healthy because it's emoting. And a lot of, particularly guys, don't heavily necessarily understand how we can let our emotions out. Often we keep our challenges and problems to ourselves. But journaling and getting it down and writing things that are important to you allows you to get those feelings out rather than staying stuck in. So I think that's healthy that you're doing that.
I
And
think so
also, it's
too.
quite good because it's keeping you focused.
I would love to see. I don't know if you've done YouTube before or if it's something that you could probably do this on Instagram as well. I would love to see like a day in the life kind of vlog from you where you go through your habits and, maybe take
Yeah.
us on a workout, show us what you're eating. I think people would love that. I did it recently,
Yeah.
and people absolutely loved it. It was just like, I even called it boring and productive day in my life. Like I literally put the title was boring, and I thought for some reason I think people will actually click on that even
Well, I
more.
think I think it,
Um,
it just makes you human, James, and I think that's what
yeah,
people want. They want to know is like this guy is he's a successful young guy, but what's he actually doing in a day? I mean, if people came and saw my workout today, I don't think they'd want to do it. I mean, it's 30 minutes long, but there's no break. I pick up weights and I do quite light weights, but a lot of repetitions, like an insane amount of repetitions, because I want to be able to play paddle and I want to be able to play tennis. And if I've got delayed onset muscle stress, then I'm not going to be able to swing a ball because my arm's not going. But I did a leg workout today, and the amount of sweat that pours out is incredible. But the strength that I feel is phenomenal because I want to keep topping up. So I'm above a 70% most days. Some days your energy is not going to be great, but I'd like to say most days I'm operating at a good 7 out of 10.
yeah. I had like 4 hours sleep last night, so I'm probably a lower energy today. And I'm
Yeah.
thinking, do I like grind through and try and do a kind of normal working day and maybe be a little bit less productive, or do I just recalibrate and go, maybe there are some tasks or some kind of research that would be less taxing for me mentally, but that I've been putting off because it seems less important that would be really beneficial. Like maybe I should go and watch a podcast for an hour or go and read a book. Maybe I should do a bit more creative work rather than sitting at the computer grinding it out. Doing a podcast together is great because it's like it feels really easy to do
Yeah.
these. It doesn't feel like effort, which I love.
And the ones that do feel like effort on 4 hours sleep, you're going to find that you're going to be highly unproductive. So I would probably say on less amount of sleep, it's better to be receptive of material than it would be to be creative.
That's
Because
so true.
you get the yin and the yang, right? So if you've got a lot of energy now, I can create. Like, it's very difficult to create if you're not in a good mood, and if you do create, it's not good material. So
That's
yeah,
very true.
if you don't have a great deal of energy, try and be receptive of material if you can allow it. I'd probably definitely try and get a siesta of 10, 20 minutes sleep somewhere in the
Mm,
day, because that actually resets the chemicals to allow you to be receptive to now create.
mm,
So a lot of the podcasts I do, I make sure I have a siesta and a shower or a swim before I actually do
okay.
it, because I
Little
know I'm
reset.
in optimal brain states now for high frequency material that, will be clear.
Yeah. I hate to end the podcast on more of a superficial note, but I know a lot of people will watch this and go, how is this guy 50 years old? And how do I look that good when I'm older? So, what are some of your best recommendations for aging like a fine wine as a man?
Oh, thank you very much. I guess the main thing is try and get between 10 and 12 fruits and veggies in every day, regardless. If you have to use a blender and a smoothie, get them in, because those nutrients go into the skin and very important for the elasticity of your well-being and make you look more youthful. The nutrients create greater vitality in your skin and your eyes. I'd try and definitely manage your alcohol, because that's important, because if you have too much alcohol, that can age you. And I would say another thing that you've got to do is exercise and spend a lot of time in nature, because the more relaxed you can be, active, relaxed, like walking in nature soothes the nervous system. So I probably spend a good 20 minutes in nature every day, walking somewhere or other, or sitting on the beach or in a forest or something. I think it's really important that you connect with nature. Just drink a lot of good water and get enough sleep. And if you can, do things that make you happy, and that's it. It's not much else. Do
how
things
much
that make
would
you happy.
how much of your overall health and wellness that you have right now would you attribute to not drinking alcohol if you were to try and put a percentage on it?
Okay, well, I would say it helps me operate at a high level of focus.
Mm,
And I think that is focus is what helps us achieve our goals. And as a man, we really have essential, it's kind of like a societal thing that's placed upon us that we need to succeed in something. It's really important. And in order to succeed in whatever you're doing, you need a high level of focus. And in order for me to focus, I find that I focus better when my mind is clear. And that's happening when I haven't got alcohol in the system.
mm,
That's my take on it. But, don't listen to me, listen to your own body. And that's what I spent years trying to do. Listen to what my body wanted and what it didn't want. My body found that it didn't want a lot of toxins. So I became plant based. No one in my family has ever become plant based. But my concern of becoming plant based was just because the issue was, am I going to lose muscle mass? Am I going to, where's the protein coming from? But I found that that really wasn't a problem at all after doing it for 3 months. And it just felt naturally light. So I gravitated to things that allowed my mind to be really clear, which didn't harm any of my energy levels. And that's why I probably say since 2004, since I've been plant-based and totally sober, which what's that, 21 years, I haven't really thought about it. I've just operated at a high level of energy, and that's all I know. So any little habits that you could ask yourself is what's going to allow me to have greater energy? And I guarantee it's not going to be putting anything heavy or toxic inside your body.
yeah. James, let's wrap this one up here. Thank you so much for making the time. I can't tell you how much I've enjoyed this conversation. I hope we get to do it in person before too long as well.
We will do. We will do.
Yeah,
James, thank you so much.
absolutely.
I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. And if people want to check out you and the thing that you do with executive coaching as well, I'll put all the links so that people can take a
Thank you
look.
so much. And also, I run a podcast called the Super Soul Model Series. So
Yeah.
come and have a listen. And there's going to be a title that I'm sure will inspire you or intrigue you in there.
Yeah, yeah. You go and listen to the episode with me. Start there.
Yeah, that
There
was
you
the
go.
best one. Thanks again, James. Much
All right.
appreciated.